Well, hey, thanks for joining us. And guess what? The #1 best pedal of all time that you absolutely must have. You need it. You gotta have it. And it is... It's not what you're thinking. Huh? What? Yeah. Maybe not quite what you're thinking, guys, and it wasn't what I was thinking, but it depends on the circumstance. Now, we've all seen the videos, guys. Everybody makes them. You know what pedals they are. I'm not going to repeat them, but I'm going to say to you, depending on the circumstance, it's actually not quite exactly what we're all being told. So, let's create a scenario. What if you have an amplifier that has distortion or whatever and reverb and all that kind of stuff, maybe even chorus, but you're using a looper pedal? The thing is with the looper pedal is that everything that you want to loop has to be before the amp. So the looper pedal, of course, then feeds into the amp, right? So you plug into the looper, looper goes into amp. So any effects that you want have to be before the looper. So, i.e., you're going to have certain pedals that are more important than you might think, more important than I thought. Okay, so let's go through them. I'll let you hear them instead of telling you what they are. Just in case you're curious what the heck this contraption is, this is and you haven't seen it before, this is a guitar harness. There's actually a strap that goes along the back of this guitar, and I hook into it with this, right? Kind of cool. So it takes a lot of the pressure, at least 50%, off of my left shoulder, and you can see how easy that was to re-snap. And you can position it up and down, and it stays balanced, right? So that's pretty cool, right? Okay, let's get back to the pedals. Now, first we have to start with our dry signal, and that's going to tell us exactly what pedal we're actually going to need first, and it's not what you think, okay? Here we go. Try it again. So if we're before a looper, guess what effect you're going to need? That's right, reverb. You're going to need a reverb pedal going before. Now some of you guys might say, oh, well, what about the effects loop? Well, I've tried it and it sounds like garbage. And I'll show you a little bit right now. Check this out. What I'm going to do is I'm turning off my reverb pedal. I'm going to take us into the overdrive channel. Right, there we are. No reverb. Let's turn some reverb on there. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the reverb, and I'm going to turn on the pedal reverb, and listen to what it sounds like before distortion. That's nice. Eek. So there is another lesson as far as that goes in pedal order. So let's turn the reverb on after the distortion. Let's turn it up so you can hear better. That's my amp's reverb. That's the Orange Crush 35 RT. But now let me show you another thing here. There's a whole bunch to this, and this is why sometimes your pedal order is crucial, right? And mine is kind of weird. It's different than most. I have a video or two about why my pedal order is the way it is. I'll link it in the description. Check it out. But anyway, another thing. So that shows you that your next most important pedal has to be in a certain order, and it is your second most important pedal depending on the type of player you are. Now, in reality, the #1 pedal you need is absolutely nothing, right? Guitar or amp. But if you want reverb and other types of things, well, you're going to need a few pedals, right? So let's just make sure we're on the same page. We're going down that same road. All right, so the next pedal is, and now we have our reverb. Here it comes. Yeah. Distortion or overdrive. Right, now I have an all-in-one pedal. It's the Strymon Sunset. Here's the overdrive pedal. Okay, Nice hard driving pedal. It has a couple different settings. It has, you know, and then here's your distortion. Right? I know that's not how Tony plays it. Okay, so you get the drift. So distortion or overdrive is your number 2 effect. That's the number 2 must-have, especially if you're using a looper. You got to have this stuff before the looper. Okay? Now, so that's the top 2. I'm going to take us to the top 4, and again, this is where we just go strictly on opinion. In my opinion. This is all opinion, isn't it? Alright, in my opinion, here's your number 3. Now, let's say you have an amp that just doesn't have all that great of a clean channel, or just isn't all that great clean. Well, you do what we did in the 80s. Now, that was pretty simple. You add this to clean up your clean. So here's our clean, which actually is very nice. Let's take it to middle. Ooh, beautiful. At the phone. Okay, let's add the next effect that I think, if you have a terrible clean, you need to spruce it up. What is that? Chorus pedal. Now, back in the 80s and stuff, you know, the area that I come out of playing in the late 70s and throughout the 80s, a lot of the Marshall amp that I used at that time was a JCM 800 with a channel splitter, so it had a clean with a reverb. That was really important to me, to have a reverb in an amp, and Marshalls, before that, some they just didn't have it. But that one did, and it was a classic hard rock, bordering on metal, depends on how hard you push it or what you put in front of it, amp. It was just a really killer amp. And with the 2 channels, it's like, man, it's a no-brainer. And it had reverb to boot, so it was a killer amp. That's where I come from, that kind of thinking, right? So that's why I have this particular amp. It has reverb and stuff, and of course it's a hard-driving Marshall kick butt amp. But now that I'm using loopers and stuff, you got to have any effect you want before the amp. So again, that's reverb, overdrive, or distortion. Next, I would put in chorus, and then there's one more that I would put in there. And it's not for the really necessarily, the word compression isn't correct, but it compresses the crap out of your signal, and it brings it to that really fine point, and it gives you some really cool tones, and that is this one. Yeah, the Crybaby. And as you can hear, it doesn't over-affect anything. It's dialed right in. It's at the beginning of my signal chain. So it fits right there perfectly with how I've got this dialed in. And again, I'm using my distortion pedal and my reverb pedal as well. We are before the looper, right? So those are my top choices for must-have pedals if you want effects at all, and you just happen to be using a looper, right? So that's the one thing that I did not know. I was kind of clueless about that in the beginning when I first got a looper. I'm thinking, oh, I was using it and I'm like, crap, this doesn't work. What about distortion? I hadn't used a distortion pedal since like around 1982, 1983, something like that. And I used that typical, orange pedal that everybody, just about everybody used in those days for hard distortion. But I wasn't using Marshall amps yet, and I was not getting the sound I wanted through that orange pedal. And then I discovered it in that Marshall, especially when you really drive it. Woo, look out. So she's coming down fast. But then I always stuck with distortion in amp. I want my amp to do the overdriving. And even with this little orange amp here, the Orange Crush 35 RT, it has a killer overdrive channel. I don't need a distortion pedal until you start using a looper. And what about reverb? You don't need reverb, it comes in your amp. Yeah, well, guess what? You do need one if you want reverb before the looper pedal, once again. And of course, delay and chorus and all that stuff in your Crybaby depends, you know, what you want in your music. So, but this is kind of one of those things that you know how they are, may not tell you, and you just discover. You just kind of trip over it. You discover it on your own. That's what the self-taught thing is all about. Right, guys? Well, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this. If you're new to the channel, please check out some more videos. If you like what we do, please subscribe. We truly appreciate our subscribers. We want to grow this channel as big as it can get, as long as we're satisfying the listeners' or viewers' needs. Right, guys? Right on. Thanks for viewing, and we'll see you next video.